All right. So, like I said, today, here's what we're going to cover. The number one mistake new investors make when raising capital and how to fix it. So, I'm going to show you the exact process we use. This is the core process you should have in your capital raising toolbox. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Okay. Now, listen, I've got a lot to cover today. So, I am going to move quickly. You might want to get out a pen and a paper. You might want to take some notes. One of the things I want to do is after we get through this, a lot of you know, and maybe some of you don't, we're doing a beta launch for a capital raising program. So I'm going to go through the training today, and then I'm going to show you an overview, literally step by step, everything you need to do to create a capital raising machine. All right. And then if we've got time, I'm actually going to pull back the covers and I'm going to show you some of the things that we're working on. So you're going to get some insights into that. So I'm going to give you a whole lot of information today. If you got questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. When we get to the end, I'm going to do my best to answer those. As long as we've got time, I will answer all of your questions. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay. Now, I get a chance to speak with a lot of people in the apartment investing space. And I've learned that all roads lead to capital raising, and a lot of people just suck at it. And that's okay. Here's what I want you to know. It's really not your fault. And you probably told yourself, maybe I'm not cut out for this, or maybe I'm doing something wrong. And a lot of the mentorships you get into, and you know, this is my experience, and I've heard this from a lot of people, you get into these programs about apartment investing, and there's like one or two presentations about raising capital. It's just really not enough to teach you what you need. So that's also a problem. And you might have even heard that the first thing you need to do is find a deal and then the money will come. And that doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna show you why. And then there's this big fear of like, what happens if I get a deal and I can't raise a dime? All right. So here's what I want you to know. It's not your fault because there's a lot of misinformation out there and it's hard to piece it all together. Here's my goal today. There's really two people that I can help out here. And this could be if you're a beginner and you've never even raised capital before, this strategy absolutely works for you. And a lot of people who are experienced in apartment investing, but just have found it a big struggle to be able to raise capital. And I can help both people here. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to quickly raise capital. I'm going to show you how to get through this common mistake new investors make, and even some experienced investors make. All right. So that's my goal. Stick around to the end, and I'm going to do that for you today. All right. But first, if you've never met me before, my name is Stephen Lee Thomas. I'm a multifamily investor. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a podcast host, and I'm a business coach. And I help people raise capital for their apartment deals. I help people get unstuck and figure out how to raise capital for their deals. And this could actually be mobile home parks. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's real estate and you're raising capital, I can help you get unstuck. Okay. But a little bit more about me. My partners and I, over the last several years, have purchased a lot of apartment complexes. We know what we're doing. We've done this a lot. So we've invested in nearly 3,500 units across 16 deals. A number of those have gone full cycle. These are large apartment deals, guys. These are not duplexes. These are not fourplexes. There's no single family homes in here. These are large apartment complexes. And we had to raise a lot of money to be able to do this. In fact, my partners and I have raised over $70 million in capital for our deals. Okay. But I'm here to tell you it wasn't always like that. So let me give you a little bit of backstory. When I first got into the apartment investing space a little over 7 years ago, I'm in my 8th year now. One of the things I learned early on was that you need to build an investor database. And so I literally built an access database and I would go to these networking events and I would get business cards and I would add them to my database. And I went to raise capital for my first deal thinking, hey, I did what they told me, build an investor database, go to these networking events and people will invest. I had a deal, money should come. I went to raise money and it was crickets. I had one person invest. It was like $50,000. We needed $10 million. So my partners, fortunately, they had some experience and they raised a lot of money. And what I learned along the way is that raising capital is really is it's not about fancy websites. It's not about getting thousands or hundreds of leads. It's basically everything I was taught was wrong. It was misinformation, and there was no structure to it. So then I went out and I spent a lot of time. I got additional coaching, and what I learned to do was raise capital. I'm a much more effective with it today than I was. So I took the time to learn, and that's what you can do too. All right, so here is the number one mistake people make when raising capital. And here it is right here. Don't wait for a deal to raise money. You need to raise money before you have a deal. And I know there's different schools of thoughts on this, but if you can accept this one idea, just this one idea, then everything else I'm going to show you today, I promise you, is going to fall into place. So let me explain that. So I told you about my first deal. So let's fast forward a year or so for my first deal. And I'd slowly been working on building out my investor database, but really structured on step by step how to do this and with intention of raising capital. And one of my partners reached out to me and he had a deal and asked me how much money I could raise. Now I was really burnt from this first deal. So to be honest, I was really worried. I had been working on this list, but I had no idea if I'd be able to raise any money from those investors. Like I said, I was just so frustrated from my first experience. But here's what happened. It was actually very surprising. So a lot of those people I've been chatting with and actually following my process to raise capital, a lot of them said yes. So not only at that point did I have visibility into how much capital I could raise, because when I was talking with them, I got a commitment, 50,000, 100,000, 250,000. I got that commitment. It was before I ever had a deal. But I just proved to myself how much easier it is to raise capital before I have a deal rather than scrambling around when you got a deal and figuring out how the hell you're going to pay for this thing. How the hell are you going to raise the money for it? Okay. So the story I'd been telling myself was that I had to have a deal before I raised the money, and that was wrong. What I learned is that taking the time to raise money before you have a deal is way easier and way more effective than I thought I would be. And that was really my aha moment. Okay. So for the rest of this training session, I'm going to walk you through exactly step by step what I do to go from you got someone over here who's a cold lead, like, hey man, like I don't even want to talk to you, to someone who's ready to invest. So let me talk to you about the things we're going to cover today. Step by step, I'm going to talk to you about how to define this list of people to reach out to. I'm going to show you exactly what the outreach looks like, how to get people on a book call. I'm going to break down when you have that conversation with them, what do you say in that one-on-one? I'm going to explain this concept of getting a soft commitment before you ever have a deal, and then how to get people into a deal. So your goal really here is to get people, is change this from where people are like, oh man, I don't want to invest in your deal, to I got money, I'm ready to invest. Okay. So who's excited to learn these steps? Because this is a game changer. This is going to change things for you guys. All right. So let's jump into this. Now, I like to level set. When I got into this, the first several years of apartment investing, I didn't have this concept of a marketing funnel. And I'm not aware of any apartment investing program that actually teaches this concept of a marketing funnel. But at the end of the day, capital raising, when you take a step back and look at it, it really truly is a marketing and sales funnel. And that's one of the core concepts that I teach and I walk people through, because once you have that understanding, everything starts to fall into place. Everything starts to click. You start to understand, where are these people at? Because depending on where they're at, you have different conversations with them. You give them a different call to action. So literally what I'm going to break down for you today, you're just going to see in action, is a marketing funnel. All right. That's going to help you move forward. So At the top of the funnel, you have this thing called awareness. And generally, what you're doing here is you're defining your list, doing some outreach, and you always got to have a call to action because that's how you move people from one step of the funnel to the next step. Then you get them interested. So this is where you can start having webinars, conduct a one-on-one call, share with them I like to call it just a general apartment investing overview pitch deck, and then you gain your soft commitment. Then you can, want to convert them into a deal. You're going to host a webinar for a specific deal, send them the info, and you're going to get them to invest in that deal. And then you keep them warm in the loyalty phase. And then that's where you structure like a biweekly newsletter, invest in another deal, or ask for referrals. Right? So I do not have the time today to go through every single one of these step by step, but I am going to walk you through how to create your list and the exact steps of doing your outreach, including how to get them to invest in a deal. Okay. I'm going to show you step by step, real world scenario. So, first thing you're thinking, Stephen, this is great, but how do I get leads quickly? Okay. There's a couple of different schools of thoughts on this, and this is taken from Alex Hormozy's $100 million leads, how to get strangers to want to buy your stuff. So I have read a lot of these books, and this is one of them I recommend. There is this idea of warm leads and cold leads. And the warm leads are people that you know, they're your audience, okay? And they all started as cold leads at some point. What you have to do is warm them up, right? You can't just walk up to somebody on the street you never had any relationship with and say, hey, would you like to invest $100,000 in my deal? You can't do it. So where do you start raising capital? You start warm. Eventually, and I will show you in the next slide, eventually you go and find cold leads and you warm them up. But you've got to start with warm leads. That you have to start there. Okay. If you don't have warm leads, then you got to go find cold leads and warm them up. But you've got to get your leads warm before you can ask anybody to invest in a deal. All right. So how do I get new leads? Once again, in this book, there's this beautiful concept and, a quick story about my journey. And, I used to think that raising capital was all about, like I said, getting those business cards at networking events. And I already told you I tried that and I failed. And I was like, man, what do I do? Like, this is just not working out for me. I like, there's no way to get, new investors, people to invest in my deals. So I spent years and lots of trial and error. But what I learned is that actually investors, they're everywhere if you know where to look. And that's when I learned about this very simple and yet very effective matrix about finding leads. And like I said, so what I learned is that they're literally everywhere. It's just a matter of knowing where to focus. So most of you are probably right here. And when you boil it down, there's really only 4 places to get new leads. These are new potential investors. This is what Alex calls the core 4. And it comes down to this. It's people that you know, and you can have a one-to-one private conversation with them, and that's what we call warm outreach. Now, remember, at some point, you didn't know anybody. Over time, you build up this relationship. There's nothing different about finding new leads. It's getting people into this spot. Okay. Now, from there, there's different strategies you can use. If you stick with, right, so you can go here, people who you don't know, that's cold outreach, one-to-one, that's direct messaging. You can do it. It's hard work. There's some success there, but it's a lot of hard work. It's definitely a strategy you can have in your toolbox. You need to learn how to do it. I'm going to show you basically a combination here, a combo, step by step, how this worked out. You can also leverage posting free content, and this is a one-to-many here. So this is leveraging social media. This can be YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, but you got to get this out here, post free content. And so this is very common, but still this is limited to people who know you, people who are following you, right? And so yeah, you talk about algorithms and getting out to other people, but so you can do this or you can run paid ads. And I'm here to tell you I've done all of these. Okay, I have done every single one of these, including running paid ads. They all are effective. You just have to know when to use them and how to use them. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is build your, what I call a hit list. So let's talk about this idea of a hit list. These are the people who you're going to reach out to first. Okay. Um, and here's a strategy. If you've never gone out and raised capital before, I'm going to be real honest with you. You need feedback. You need real world feedback. So if you're reaching out to people that you already know, like you might be thinking like, I don't want to reach out to people I already know. But the thing is, you need people to talk to. You need feedback. And so one of the strategies I like to have people do when they're first doing this outreach and practicing is reach out to people that you already know and say, hey, I'm working on this. I would just love to get your feedback. And then they'll tell you what's really going on. Okay. So when you're building your hit list, include as many people as you think would get on a phone call with you. That's more important. You've got to get the word out. Think of it like this. You have to get people to warm up to the idea of what you're doing. And if nobody knows what you're doing, they can't get warm to the idea of what you're doing. So if nothing else, guys, if nothing else, this is just you getting the word out. The more people that know about what you're doing, the more people that you can talk to, the more people you have as potential investors. So don't be afraid to create a very, very, very big hit list. If you can do it, try to come up with at least 100 people. So what is a hit list? It's high trust, investable profile, and timely conversation. So these are people who you already know, people who already know, like, and trust you. Those are warm leads. Whether you met them on the elevator and started having a conversation with them and warmed them up, or it's somebody that you've known for 10 years. Okay. Um, Investable profile. So people with income and net worth to invest, even when you're first starting, I would suggest there's some people you might not really know their situation, and you're like, they probably won't invest. Who cares? Have a conversation with them because they might know somebody who would, and you need the practice. So don't let this be a deterrent. And then timely conversations, people who are likely going to engage now. Like I said, these are your warm leads. So if you visualize this, it's your past relationships, your high net worth network. And so some people will leverage LinkedIn for this, or their personal network, or networking events, and then referrals. Always, 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 when you're having these conversations, I always do this. When I get to the end of my conversation, I say, do you know anybody else who might be interested in learning about this? That will get you new leads. And they're cold, but they're warm because you're leveraging somebody else's relationship. And that's big. So here's where you can start to work on your hit list. So these are contacts who are already in your world. These are former coworkers or current coworkers, business connections, past clients, local professionals, social followers. But when you're doing this, I strongly recommend don't cold spam everyone. Like just don't do it. You want to prioritize your list, and you're going to want to work through it. Okay. Um, People don't like spam. I don't think you should do that. You want to prioritize your list and work through it. But there's really at its core, this is how you can go create your hit list. So with just this little bit of information, go start making a list. See if you can come up with 100 people. Go through your phone, go through your email, go through your social media profiles. Um, if you're at work, go through the people that you work with. Start building that list. There's going to be some resistance that you have, but you need to start building that list, and just you got to get to the point where you're comfortable reaching out to people. Okay, for the rest of this webinar, I'm going to show you the exact conversation, and I got it in text message. So we're going to go through my exact text message with someone who I reached out to and got them into a deal. Okay, it was like 20 days. It was 20 days from the time I reached out to them to the time they invested in a deal. Okay, you can follow these exact steps. You can use these exact words. We'll make them your own, but this is the exact steps I took to go from somebody that I just reached out to $50,000 invested in a deal in 20 days. Okay. So there's steps. I'm going to list out the steps on the side here, and then we're going to go through that conversation. So this is a person that I had in my contact list for a very long time, but it had been such a long time since I had reached out to them that there was no prior conversation history. So what I like to do is the very first thing you do is Your initial outreach, you build a little bit of rapport. So I'm gonna go through this conversation. I reach out to Clint. Hey Clint, hope this is still your number. Like I said, I haven't texted this guy in a very long time, but he's part of my hit list. This is Stephen Lee Thomas. Sorry, I missed you guys last week for beers. They were having an event. I hadn't seen him for a while, but I just opened up the floor. And he said, "Hey, Steven, yep, it is still my number, no problem. I'm sure we'll be doing it again soon." And I said, "This is where I used to work before I left and started doing this full time. Just chit chat, right? How's work been? It's not too crazy." And then he actually opened the door for me, which made it a lot easier. But he said, I heard you're doing your own thing now." Joking around, who's spreading rumors? I'm like, yeah, it's true. He said, "Congrats on being your own boss." So we have a little bit of chit chat. And then we move on to the next part of the conversation. And so I'm going to tell you, add this to your playbook. This is very, very, very effective, especially when you're first getting started. Okay. So I say to Clint, I said, "Hey, maybe you could help me out. Since you brought up my new job, now that I'm doing this full time, I said, I prepared a presentation. It's like a slide deck explaining how passive investing in apartments works. Would you be open to giving me feedback on my presentation and letting me know anyone who might be a good fit for this type of investment opportunity?" Okay. So little bit of chit chat, building rapport. And you can do this with cold outreach. So this is something that I had, I knew for a while, but I never really talked to him about this. I hadn't talked to him in years. Um, but you can use this in cold DMs too. So let's say you're going into a Facebook group, or something else like that, where you're really truly doing cold outreach. This actually, it can be an effective method. Okay. Um, and he says, "Yeah, I can do that. Thanks. That would mean a lot to me." And then we're trying to get a time scheduled. Do you have time in the next couple of weeks? It'd just be a quick Zoom call during normal work hours. Yeah, I could do that. I said, "Thanks." But here's what happens. This is going to happen to you a lot. Um, he didn't get back to me about a time we could meet, right? He's already got a little bit of hesitation. He didn't get back to me about a time we could meet. And that is very normal. So don't let that's like, you're going to hit these roadblocks and obstacles along the way. Don't let that be a deterrent. You have to learn to be persistent, and it doesn't matter like what you're doing. You've got to give people this opportunity. So, I just took ownership here. I said, "Hey man, it's been a busy week for me. Can we try to connect Monday or Wednesday afternoon this week?" He says, "Yeah, I think we can make it happen." And here's another strategy. I say, I pick two times, and I say, "Can we do 2 or 3 on Wednesday?" And he says, "I think either one of those works. I'll check my calendar." And then he sends me his email, and then we get that booked. Okay. He says, "Yep." Actually, he didn't get back to me again. So I had to follow up with him. We got that booked. So you have to initial outreach, leverage your relationship and that conversation. And then it's called setting. You got to get the call booked. Okay. Now we've got a call booked, and you're like, "All right, cool. Like I can follow those steps. I can do the messaging, but what do I say once I get someone on this call?" There's a very specific framework you need to follow. And this is where I fell flat on my face. This was a lot of trial and error and experience, guys. So I used to have this big, long, crazy slide deck presentation that explained everything about apartment investing, and people's eyes would glaze over and they're like, "I don't even know what you're talking about." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like it's just numbers and math." And they're like, "I don't really care." And most people are like, I'm not interested in that." So I listened and I listened and I listened. So then I came up with this strategy, and it's very, very, very effective. So the first half of the conversation, here's what you're going to do. You're literally just going to have a conversation. You're not going to show them anything about apartment investing. Now, remember, what you're showing them here is not a specific deal. You're talking to them about the concept of apartment investing, and what you're trying to do here is understand, is it a good fit for them or not? You're trying to help solve a pain for this person. So here's how you frame up the call. You state the agenda saying, "Hey, thanks for hopping on the call. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at where you're at with your investments, where you're trying to be, any gaps you've got, like what's working for you, what's not." And then you're just going to walk through the call, asking some questions. And like I said, figure out like what they want, what's keeping them from achieving what they want, and then can apartment investing solve that problem for them? So think of it like this. A lot of people are just blindly putting money into their 401k. They blindly put money into the stock market. They blindly get stock options and they just leave them there because they don't know what else to do. Financial strategists will be like, hey, man, just keep putting money in and just keep putting money in here and you'll have money. But I guarantee you, if you ask some questions like this, people are going to see they have a problem. You're going to say some things like, have you sat down and figured out how much money you want every month in retirement? And they might say no. And then you're going to say, well, have you sat down and figured out at what age you're going to be able to retire? And they're probably going to say no. And then you're going to say, well, have you figured out like exactly how much money you need to have so that you can retire at a specific age and how much money you're going to have every month? And you already know the answer is no. So those three questions alone right there are pretty powerful. And it's really going to depend on who you're chatting with. But the idea is you need to ask enough questions to truly understand if where they're at, they need help. And if investing in apartments or whatever it is you're having them invest in, maybe it's a fund, is actually a solution for them. So here's another one. Hey, on the money that you're currently investing, do you have any tax deferral strategies or is there any way to reduce taxes on the money you're earning? And they might say a Roth IRA, and that's good, but you actually pay less taxes if you use the depreciation on apartments. So you go through those questions, and then at that point you say, well, I think this actually might be a good fit for you. Would you like to see more about how apartment investing can help you solve these problems? And I guarantee you, they're going to say, yeah, I would love to see how that works. Okay. So then you move into the second half of your conversation. And at that point, what I recommend you do is you bring up a very simple slide deck. Very simple. You are not going into the underwriting. You're not doing that. What you're talking about is really, truly the outcome of investing in these types of investments. So here's what I like to do. I like to basically restate their problem in the front half of this and say, look, I understand, most people have these limited options. It's a 401k or maybe they've got some stock options or a pension, but that's really the only options they have. So, but one of the solutions, and this is where apartment investing fits in, can solve a lot of these things, and you get to invest in real estate without having to do any of the work. Does that sound cool? They're like, yeah, that sounds really cool. All right. So let me share with you some examples. Like, let me just show with you some past deals we've done. If you don't have past deals, it's like testimonials. That's cool. You don't have to do that. Like I said, you restate the problem, restate the solution. And if you got them, share case studies. If you don't, I would just kind of skip that. One of the things you can do is once you start working with partners, and they've got the track record, you can borrow from their track record because then you're saying we rather than I. Hey, we've done this, we've done this. But this is really important. What I like to do is I like to show examples with a best case, worst case, and most likely. So I'll say, for example, and I have this in a grid on my spreadsheet. I'll say, okay, so in the past, some of our deals, if you had invested $50,000, you would have got this much cash flow. You would have got this much when we sold the deal, and you would have got all that in 2.5 years. Um, and so I just show them real simple examples. I don't use IRR. I don't use cash on cash. I don't use complicated terms. I'm not doing that level of education at this point. What I am doing is just showing them you put this much money in, the machine gives you this much money when it comes out. Very, very, very simple. I also like to manage expectations of 50, 100, or $250,000. People are going to ask you, like, what's the minimum investment? If you start having them visualize what's there, then it's already starting to get, implanted into the brain of how much they're going to need to invest. So from there, and then what I do is I take the same, I have the examples and I break that down in those levels. And I go over and I say, let's talk about a best case, worst case, and most likely. So I say, look, in the best case scenario, if you invested 50, 100, $250,000, it's going to look like this. You're going to make all kinds of money. Worst case, it's going to look like this. Maybe you won't make any money. Maybe you'll make a little bit. So I have some examples of that in my past of some deals I've invested in that they weren't amazing, but they weren't horrible. So I just leveraged my experience there. But you do need to manage expectations. It is not all rainbows and unicorns. So like what could happen? It might look like this, but on average, what we do is our goal is to underwrite a deal for 5 years. And over the course of 5 years, our goal is to give you an 80% return on your investment with at least 5 to 6% cash flow. And if it doesn't meet that criteria, you're never even going to see it. I'm never even going to show it to you. And they're like, cool. Because now they can visualize, they've seen examples, they've seen best, worst, most likely. You've been transparent and honest with them, and they can visualize, oh, if I was to invest this much money, it might look like this. Okay. Now, when you're first getting started, these next two things, well, I guess the next one is very important. And this is where you just ask for feedback. Now, I'm giving you some cheats here so you can start implementing this right away. Um, but ask for feedback. So you get to the end of that and you say, hey, yeah, I appreciate you joining this call. And really my intention was just to get some feedback here. So what do you think? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how interested are you in this? And just be honest. And if there's something you think I, missed or was confusing, just let me know. And that is like one of the most valuable things you can do when you're starting out. Um, and because it's going to just help you get better at it. And a couple of things are going to happen. They're either going to say, dude, it was horrible, it stinks. And you're like, well, cool, thanks. It hurts a little bit, but you need that feedback. And then you say, well, what do I need to work on? And just spend some time getting that feedback. But the other thing that happens a lot, and once you get better at this, you don't even have to ask for feedback. You don't do that. Um, because the other thing is you're like, hey, you just how are you feeling about this? Do you feel it's going to help you or not? Like, where do you feel the alignment is? Um, and at that point, they say, yeah, I would love to, potentially invest in one of your next deals. And that's where you ask for a soft commitment. So this is where you start asking, this is where you actually get a $50,000 commitment, a $100,000 commitment, a $250,000 commitment. And this is the game changer right here, because now you don't have a specific deal. All you've done is you've started the education process on apartment investing. You've shown them the way. Now they're warmed up. Now between now and when you have a deal, you can start giving them more education. You can keep them warm. They're already emotionally invested at this point. They can see how you can solve their problems for them. This is the moment where you ask for a soft commitment. You say, cool, well, let me get a little bit of information from you. How much do you think you'd like to invest? And you get that. And now all of a sudden you're like, I can raise $2 million. And you become a very valuable person because other people have not taken the time to do this, and you have. And so now people are coming to you and asking you if you can help raise capital. That is the game changer. This is the flow. All right. So now I'm going to move forward from here. All right. So at this point, right, I got the call. We had that conversation. We do the follow up, and I say, Clint, thanks for your time today. I just sent you an email with the decks we covered today. So I shared with him everything we covered. Sweet. Things will be in touch. Um, and then I reached out back out to him about a week later, right? Coincidentally, someone came to me. Hey, can you help raise capital? I just got off the call with this person within the last week. And I said, just circling back to see if you want to get in on the deal we currently have available. We need to have all the funds in by the end of next week. Do you want to try to get into this deal? So at this point, I'm telling you, you got to go once you have a deal and you're trying to raise capital, you do need to follow up with people. The money, it just doesn't rain money. You've got to have this process where you go out and connect with people and get them to, pull them back in. It is especially new investors. You're going to have to really pull them through. So from there, you will probably have some objections. So how do you handle those objections? Now, in this particular deal, there's a $75,000 minimum investment. He says, hey, I think we're going to want to get in on the next one where there's a $50,000 option. So I said, look, if that's the only deal breaker from you, because what you have to find out is that really the only thing stopping him, is there something else? So I just framed it up this way. If the $75,000 is a deal breaker and you want to get in on this deal, I have approval from my partners to take a $50,000 investment to get you in. He says, okay, we're in for 50K. For this deal, correct? Yep. All right, cool. Sounds good. So then I send him the link and we go on. And so the next day, he says, just submitted the documentation for the investment. So that whole thing from outreach, having that conversation, and I did have to move him forward, it was 20 days. So you could do this with 10 other people and raise $500,000. That's it. That is all you got to do to raise capital. There's no fancy websites. There's no crazy lead magnets. There's none of that stuff. It's just doing the things that work. Okay. So when we say the number one mistake most new investors make, it's that they wait till they have a deal and then they don't know how to have the conversation. All they're doing is trying to shove a deal down somebody's throat. You've never taken the time to educate somebody on how the process works. When you take the time to educate somebody on how the process works before you have a deal, you remove friction. That's it. It's that simple. Don't overthink it. Okay. So, like I said, I didn't have to have a website for this. I didn't have to have anything fancy for this at all. It was, how do I have the right conversation? Okay. So, look, this is Janice. She's been in my program. You might have seen her in the school community. I worked with her on getting this exact strategy set up. She was in another apartment investing program for a little over a year, never able to get a deal. We chatted and she's like, I'm really stuck on raising capital. And I said, all right, I got you, Janice. Don't worry. Let's do this. And she says, Stephen's been instrumental in helping us navigate multifamily investing, answering multifamily, navigating multifamily investing, answering our questions, and giving us a deeper understanding of the process. He taught us how to raise capital, provided support where we needed it most, and gave us the confidence to take action. Through the Multifamily Mastery Hub, we also made valuable connections that have been key to our growth. Thanks to his guidance, we're on track to close our first $10 million deal. We couldn't be more excited for what's ahead. So this was probably about a month ago. She closed on this deal, actually. Okay, this was her first deal. She was, when it came to raising capital, of the people she was working with, it was her first time she went to raise capital. She was the second highest. She came in second of all the people raising capital. She raised the second largest amount. Okay. And all she did was implement the strategies that I was telling her to do. It was all trial and error. Remember, I told you that at one point I was not good, but I didn't give up. And I just kept moving forward and trying and learning and getting more coaching. And it's exactly what I helped Janice with. Okay. So here's a recap. Go create your list of contacts, start your outreach, set up calls, and go raise some capital. All right. Simple as that. So you're thinking, Stephen, this is great. How do I actually implement all of this? Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to shift gears a little bit and I'm going to show you, I'm going to pull back the curtains. I'm going to go behind the scenes of the exact process you can put in place to start raising capital. And so we're going to come over here. In this, I would love to get your feedback on this. This is the program we're launching. I'm going to share more with you about this in a little bit, but this is the program we're launching. We're calling it the Capital Raising Fast Track, and we're using the upside down capital raising funnel. So if you missed it, there's some webinars we've done over the last couple of weeks. You can go watch those replays in the school community or go find those out on the YouTube channel. And there's a lot more to it, and we get into other details in that. But today I wanted to give you specific strategies on how to have that conversation. So what we've got on the screen right here is these are the exact steps that if you implement these, all of these things, and what you learn is you learn to start at the bottom of that funnel. Remember that marketing funnel. You learn to start on the bottom of your marketing funnel. And you learn how to do the appointment setting, which is what I showed you today. You learn how to do the one-on-one script, which is what I showed you today. You learn how to do the soft commitment form, which is what I showed you today. This is really the core of your funnel right here. You learn how to do these things and everything else gets easier. So from there, we start building. It's like going to decorate. It's like buying a house, but you have to build the house. And you're like, hey, I'm going to go decorate the living room this weekend. And you go over and it's just a dirt lot. There's no foundation. There's no framing. You haven't put the walls up, none of that stuff. You can't decorate the living room if you haven't poured the foundation, done the framing, and done all the work. Okay. So this is really where I like to start because this is where all the conversion happens. If you master this one skill, everything else you do gets a whole lot easier. So then the next stuff we're going to put into the program is how to do nurturing through email automations. And that's whether you get a brand new lead or someone who said, yes, I'd like to invest. And what do you put in that? And then I also mentioned to you a property specific pitch deck. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Then we're going to show you how to build the middle of your funnel, which is how to do recurring webinars, or giving you a framework for that. We're going to talk to you about how to do what we call video sales letters. And these are short videos you create that you can send out to people to help educate them. So you don't have to do a webinar. You can do it. You don't have to do it through emails. It's a video sales letter. It's a short video you create to provide education to help them get warmed up. Remember, I talked about cold leads, getting them warm. This is a fantastic way to do this. And then that soft commitment pitch deck. Like, what do you say during that conversation? How do you structure that? We're gonna give you a template for that as well. Then that's the point it makes sense to like really get a bunch of new leads, and you take these cold people and you start getting them warm. So we have this top of funnel, and then we dig into creating, what does your avatar look like? Like, who are the people that you want to connect with? And you have social media optimization. How are you going to optimize your social media so that when people come and they start seeing you, they learn about what you do, and they start warming up to you? We're going to help you create content, a content calendar, like what do you even post, so that you can get people warmed up, and then how to create lead magnets. So at the end of this, you're going to have this big capital raising machine. So you can take all of these things, you can watch this recording, and you can probably, go try to implement a lot of these things, and, see if you can do it yourself. Or I have, another option for you, because here's what I've learned is raising capital for apartment deals, it's hard and it's lonely. But what if I could help you raise your first million, or maybe your next million, or 2, 3 million, without having to worry about all the experience and the track record? Like Janice, that was her first deal. So she was able to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, and she'd never done a deal before. Then show you how to scale even more. What would that do for you? And the answer is, it's going to change everything, guys. It's going to change everything. So I want to invite you to our capital raising fast track that we're going to do as a school community. And I want you guys to become a capital raiser. You should be able to walk into the room and say, I am a capital raiser. So the capital raising fast track, it's a proven framework. It's going to teach you how to attract investors, build trust, and raise money with confidence, even if you've struggled in the past. So you might be asking yourself, are you a good fit for this? So here's who this is a really good fit for. If you want to raise capital without needing a big brand, website, or paid ads, this is going to be a good fit for you. If you're part of a multifamily team or mentorship group, but you're still struggling to raise capital, this is a really good fit for you. If you've had investor conversations that really went nowhere and you're not sure why, this is going to get you unstuck. This is going to help you out a lot. And if you want a repeatable system to build trust and get soft commitments before your next deal, this is a really good fit for you. So look, if you're tired of guessing what to say or how to follow up with potential investors, this is an excellent program for you. We've got this community that we're working on getting everything built. And so you'll see, just like we had in that visual diagram, we're breaking down for you in the school community appointment setting, one-on-one sales script, soft commitment form, and it's color coded so you can follow along exactly where you're at and know where you need to be. So for example, I think if I come into this one, here's one of the outreach scripts. So this is one of the lessons that's in there. So if you liked the lesson today, imagine having access to everything that was in there in a very structured format, with templates, with scripts, with everything available that you need. Plus, you're going to get access to the twice a week calls and other people in the community. So guys, if you're ready to do this, we're ready to have you. We're excited. We were chatting this morning about some really cool things we're going to be adding here. So I get a lot of questions, and so I'm going to go through some of these. If you're thinking about questions, just ask. But let me go ahead and start going through these questions, and I'll keep my eye over here on the chat and answer those questions as I see them come through. So, all right, how do I know if I'm ready to start raising capital? You are always ready to start raising capital. It's like, a lot of people, they're like never really sure about it, but it's anything. It's just a skill you have to practice. So my answer is almost always you need to start raising capital. People like, oh, well, I need to have all the answers. No, you don't. That's fine. You got to do it enough times so you can get enough people asking you questions that you can get those answers. What if I don't have a deal yet? Can I still use the system? Absolutely. Like, that is one of my core things. Is this system is really set up so that you're always raising capital, not chasing capital. Will this work if I've never raised money before? Oh yeah, absolutely. And so this is like with uh, Janice, like I was sharing with you, she'd never done a deal before, and she was able to implement this strategy and raise I think $500,000, if not more, for this deal. It was her first deal, and the only way she was able to do that was because she started doing the outreach before she had a deal, and she was able to get people into that deal. Um, how do I build trust if I'm not the lead sponsor or GP? Trust is built through education. So people aren't going to invest with you only because you're the lead sponsor. Okay. They invest with you because they know you, they like you, and they trust you. So you have to be always working on building that relationship and getting people warm and getting people to trust you. And that's where a lot of that middle of funnel and bottom of funnel and nurturing come into play. Do I need a website, LLC, or logo before I can start? Nope. Actually, all of these things can wait. If you've got it, great. We can have conversations. We can help you optimize that. But I know, you know, people that have some websites and they suck and they still raise a lot of capital. There's people with no websites and they can still raise capital. So you don't need that stuff. It's cool to have. But if you don't build your foundation first, it doesn't mean anything. And actually, an LLC, I wouldn't even go get one of those until you have a deal. What tools or platforms do you recommend for managing investor outreach? I get that one a lot. And so text messaging is effective, but it depends on what you're doing. You can just use your normal, email account, depending on how you want to do it. You can do BCC if you don't want to spend any money. We use a tool for email called Active Campaign, and that allows us to build those automations. Not too complicated. There's others that are out there. There's several. I can list a lot of names, but we primarily use Active Campaign. It's like MailChimp, if you ever heard about that. But that's what we generally use for outreach. How do I get someone from interested to actually wiring funds? Well, we actually went through that whole process today. Step by step, we went through that process today. You just need to learn to follow those exact steps. Um, what if I only have friends and family right now? Is that enough? Yeah, absolutely. So whether or not you're like, I don't know if I really want to invest with them, you still need to have those conversations. And remember, I said ask for referrals, because they might not be interested, but they may know somebody who is, and that happens a lot. So I would suggest, if you're not, even if you don't want to raise money from them, go have that conversation with them, get that feedback, get those referrals. It gives you that practice so that when you get into a different room with those more sophisticated investors, you're ready because you've had the conversation 20 times before. How long does it take to build a soft commitment list that actually converts? 90 days. Um, you know, so the reason why we structured the program 90 days and the way we did, where we start with the bottom of the funnel, is that honestly, guys, if you join the program in the first week or two, you could have the bottom of your funnel built. Then from there, everything you do adds value and makes the whole process easier. So you can absolutely go from zero to hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million plus within 90 days if you just follow those steps and you show up every day and you do the work. What should I say to potential investors if I'm still building my track record? If you're still building a track record, there's a whole lot of education you can provide without sharing a track record. At some point, you're going to become a partner with somebody, and that's when you begin to leverage that relationship. That's when you begin to leverage, um, your team, and that's okay. And I'll go back to using the example of Janice, and there's other people that I'm coaching right now. They don't have the track record, but they're still able to go out and raise hundreds of thousands of dollars because they've learned how to do the outreach. They've learned how to show examples. They learned how to provide education. Like I said, people are really, they want the education. Um, and if you can do that well enough, then they're happy to invest with you. They've built that trust with you. They've gone from cold to warm. All right. All right. We've covered a lot of ground today. I hope you found this very valuable. And I think there's some good strategies you can go implement today. Okay. For those of you that are interested in, let's see, I did get a question here, but for those of you that are interested in joining the fast track, um, like I said, we will be launching the first week of June. I would get in there now. That price that we showed is not going to stick around forever. Once we launch, the price is going to go up. So if you want to get that big discount, I would invite you guys to join the beta program. So from Scarlett, how to show the number of potential investors if you don't have a deal right now, if he or she wants to invest only 50K. Scarlett, I'm going to say this back. How to show the number of potential investors if you don't have a deal right now, if he or she wants to invest only 50K. So one of the things we do, and I'm not able to bring it up right now, but it is part of this program. Um, so we leverage to get started, we leverage Google, like a Google form, and it's a brief questionnaire for anybody that wants to invest as a soft commitment. And we just go through, first name, last name, phone number. How do we know? How do you know us? How do you know me? When did we meet? Are you accredited or sophisticated? Um, what's your potential investment amount? What is your long-term strategy? Some things like that. When we use that form, we are capturing those soft commitments, and then it makes it very easy for us to say, I have one investor, two investors, 20 investors, and those 20 investors have said, one wants to do 50,000, one wants to do 100. So, for example, if they want to see how their return on investment. Okay, so let me finish the soft commit one. So we're going to show you guys how to build a little dashboard, how to track soft commitments and build a dashboard so you can see over time how much capital you've been able to get commitments from, so you know exactly how much you have on deck. So we're going to show you how to do that. If you want to see how much it'll be an ROI. So for that, Scarlett, when you have the conversation, that is where you go over those scenarios. And if nothing else, you have a best case, worst case, and most likely. And we have the exact templates ready to go for you in the program. But in there, Scarlett, so you're part of my other program. And in there, we teach you, you're looking for like 80% return or better and 6% cash flow or better. So that would be like, that's your most likely. You're going to use that scenario and say, look, when we underwrite deals, we're going to try to implement it so that we can, get that return in that time frame. 5 years, 80% return on investment, 6% cash flow average. Best case scenario, we can get that done in 2.5 years. And so then you get 100% return on your investment, you get 8% cash flow, and we can do that in 1 year. Worst case scenario, and this is where you're going to have to go through and take some of the deals you're underwriting and stress them out a little bit. And you say, look, worst case scenario, you're going to get like a 10% return, average 10% return over, 3 years, 5 years, and your cash flow might be, 4%. And so you're going to have to just look at some deals and stress them out. But the thing to do, Scarlett, for you, for example, would be look at some of the deals you're underwriting. But in the beta launch class, I show you exactly the presentation that I use, and so you can use that exact framework and say best case, worst case, most likely. But it's really just understanding the underwriting well enough. So if you got additional questions about that, we can talk about it in the multifamily fast track. But the course has a very detailed explanation of that. All right, guys. Well, we are out of time. I'm very excited to connect with you in the multifamily fast track. So we got just a little bit over a week, and then we'll be launching. And we've got all kinds of great stuff lined up for you. We're going to get some guest speakers to come in and talk to you about some more advanced topics. So really excited. All right. If you got additional questions, go ahead and email the team or send us a message in school. And I'll see you guys in the next training. Thanks.